Do not underestimate the women in this tower.
Hey there, Nomads of Lore. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jonathan.
And together we are Mead and Mischief, your home away from no home. Today we're going to be talking about Robert Jordan. We're continuing our series that we still are sticking on the title. We're going with Masterclass, I guess, or Exemplars in Fiction, but that's hard to remember. But anyway, great examples from fiction, from movies, books, film. Movies and film, the same thing, TV shows, all kinds of stuff that are really great or different or unique examples of a particular topic, trope, idea, and kind of bringing to you those ideas within how well these IPs do that thing. So we're going to be talking about Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, and women today.
And women.
And women.
I don't know where that accent came in, but
it's kind of my Ernest T.
Ernest T. I'm
here for a woman.
That's a good. I like it. I like it. Okay.
I have one, and it's not even Ramona.
So today, as Sean said, we're going to be discussing Robert Jordan and the women in his novels, and we're basically going to talk about what he did a little different than other authors. Previous to his books, for the most part, women were portrayed as the typical damsel in distress. They didn't have many interesting characteristics. They were just pretty little things that needed help, and men ran to the rescue and whatever. And so Robert Jordan as an author set out to change a lot of things and flip a lot of things on their head. Specifically, one big thing he tried to do was to flip the chosen one trope on its head. But we're not going to talk about that yet. We are going to talk about that at some point, so be looking for that video. And that will be another masterclass, or what is the other name?
Exemplar
in Fiction. I like that. It's growing on me. So anyway, we're going to talk about those today. So
before we dive in, it's worth noting. I mean, this has been well discussed by fans and detractors alike of the Wheel of Time and Robert Jordan in general. Robert Jordan was one of the first to do a lot of these things. He kind of pioneered some of this stuff. It's worth noting, though, we felt it's been talked about enough that we wanted to mention that it's not perfect. There's still issues with women and women in a relationship, and it's not perfect. The other things that we wanted to real quickly mention is that especially in the early books, the descriptors of women are a lot more just about their beauty and objectification. Another thing, this we've talked probably even in some of our other reviews of some of the Wheel of Time books, that the relationships they're kind of oversimplified, and it's what you might even call stereotypical, kinda like it's very backwards. Well, not backwards, but very one-minded on the way women think about men and way men think about women. There are some differences, especially as the series progresses. Yeah. There's some growth in that area, and it gets better on both of those things. Lastly, we wanted to mention later in the series, there is one sort of situation that deals with men and women, and we'll try not to get into spoilers. That's why I'm kind of being vague. Yeah. But that is a pretty big red flag. There's one part where kind of a female character in the book, not a main character, but a female character kind of takes advantage of a man and kind of forces herself on him, even at knife point, which, that's one thing, and discussing that in a mature way would be okay. But the problem with that is it's kind of blown over and kind of made light of, and this is guessing and speculation, but probably because it's a woman doing that to a man, and that's not really okay. So
it's not okay
again,
either way.
We wanted to make sure and kind of disclaimer some of these things, that he did pioneer a lot of things, and and we're going to discuss all the well, not all, but a few of the good things that he did with portraying women in fantasy. But we would be remiss if we didn't kind of mention that it's still not perfect, and so
of course not.
Yeah.
And speaking of spoilers, we're going to try to make this pretty much as spoiler free because of this topic. We're able to pretty much do that without talking about anything specific. If you're very scared of spoilers and you haven't read the books, then you might want to click away. But we're going to try to be, if there's any spoilers, they're going to be very, very light, non-story breaking.
Yeah,
easy things.
You can watch this video if you've never read Wheel of Time and still enjoy Wheel of Time greatly.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
let's dive in.
So as we said before, Robert Jordan made some great strides with specifically women in fantasy. And we're going to talk about three of those things, three of the ways that he did that. First way that Robert Jordan did this was timely intentionality. As we stated before, Wheel of Time was probably one of the first works of fantasy to really be intentional about its portrayal of strong female characters. Of course, credit where credit is due. Tolkien did some great things with Éowyn and Galadriel. Very strong characters. But where they were strong and where there were some really great breaking out of that mold, there's also the fact that they didn't have much time on screen, on book page, whatever.
They didn't talk to anybody but men.
Yeah. Where and Robert Jordan, half of the series, I'm sure it's not exactly half, but a lot of the series is a lot of female interaction, female interaction, female male interaction, and that was definitely not done before this series.
Absolutely.
And of course, in this topic, you really have to keep in mind when this was written. You can't really compare it to like modern novels such as Brandon Sanderson, even though he's part of this. Brandon Sanderson, you really have to think about when it was written and the fact that he was really, again, one of the first to do this.
Yeah, you got to give that credit for the beginnings. That gives it better props. The second way that Jordan really was an exemplar of modern portrayals of women, and he kicked that off like our first point, is with the more realistic interactions between women and other women and women and men. Now, it's worth noting, like we said before, that sometimes the men and women relationship, at least the romantic ones, are a little bit odd and
they're
sometimes
just
forced.
done through a single scope.
Yeah, that
like
too.
A very
so that's
lens.
but that's really a different topic. We're talking. So one way we've actually talked about in one or two of the books, one thing that is more realistic than. I'll tread carefully. I'll get the point out and then disclaimer myself before you come shoot me. But is in some of the interactions, you're dealing with a lot of teenage girls, right? And so in the story, you see a lot of bickering teenage girls that are spiteful and ugly to each other. Now, we should note that not all teenage girls are bickery and whatever else. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying it's more realistic because it's more like no. The point is having that and having these characters bicker and be annoying to each other and us, not just us as dudes, but the reader in general. Is much more realistic than the way women had been portrayed previously. They are real people with real struggles and real flaws and real issues, and they do interact in a more interesting way with men, and the way that men and women that they relate, especially is that Robert Jordan doesn't do a good job, in our opinion, of the beginning of relationships, at least most of them. But some of the already established relationships are very sweet and very beautifully written. And those relationships are much more interesting and much more compelling than the old school princess and prince falling madly in love and running off into the sunset together. And so those relationships are very interesting. It's worth noting now that, one of the ways that people talk about judging women in film, a lot of times you talk about film and books and TV shows and stuff, is the Bechdel test, right? There's 3 parts of the Bechdel test. Is there has to be at least 2 women, there has to be more than one woman, and they have to have conversations about something other than a man. For the critics and detractors, I know the Bechdel test is not perfect. It's just like any other kind of standardized generalization test, whether we're talking about BMI tests or we're talking about credit scores or whatever. It's not perfect, and there's other factors that should be taken into account. Absolutely. But all of those, just like BMI and credit score, are an okay place to kind of start your looking at things. And the Wheel of Time series passes the Bechdel test with flying colors, miles to spare. There's lots and lots of women. They have conversations about all kinds of things that have nothing to do with a man.
It's true.
You know, all that stuff.
And again, as we've said a few times already, and probably may say again, it's not perfect.
No.
His portrayal with the annoyingness of the teenagers is not perfect. The way they think in their head, that's not how every woman thinks.
No.
The way they speak to each other is not how every, and it's not perfect in that sense, but it's a lot better than what was previous. And
it was a big step forward.
Yes.
Another way that different relationships that are portrayed with women in particular that's very interesting is the wise women. And I'm not even talking about, for those,
The wise ones.
This is not really I'm not meaning this is a spoiler, but older women teaching younger women, which, I mean, you could see that as, I'm not trying to say, none of this are we trying to say that women need to be the ones in power and teaching or anything else. We're not saying that as a general rule. Just basically seeing that and seeing what you have seen in lots of other things. In typical hero's journey, you see the wise elder man teaching the
younger man.
young man, whatever. And we see that in spades and in wonderful ways in Wheel of Time. You have all of these stronger female characters, and like we've mentioned already, these are multidimensional, flawed characters. And we see some very negative looks at older women teaching younger women, and we see some, and the way it's presented a lot of the times is not ambiguous is the wrong word, but basically where the reader, it's left up to the reader to decide whether some of the teaching methods are good or bad or indifferent, and it's just presented, and that's very interesting, very compelling, and we get to see some things that had previously been relegated to just men, and we get to see it with multi-dimensions and flaws and exemplars and all kinds of things in between.
Yep. And so, third thing that Jordan does amazingly well is has women with power and agency of their own.
They don't need no man.
That's right. And boy, oh boy, are the women powerful in the Wheel of Time. We've got political power, and we've got relationship power, and we've got magical power, and all kinds of things. And with this power, women, specifically in the story, are relegated with roles that are normally given to men. We've got scholar and warrior and a monarch who actually has power, not just a figurehead. Scientist roles, all kinds of roles that typically in other fantasy novels of the past were given to men because whatever the men were, and so this was a huge step forward. In fact, neither one of us can really remember a female in the whole entire series that is totally reliant upon a man. Of course, that being said, there are a few occasions where there are men who save women, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
What's really cool about Robert Jordan's story is the magic system. And this magic system is really what made it easier with the readers of the time who were not used to strong female characters in fantasy. It made it easier to stomach that, to take on a female and be like, oh, it's okay that a female's in this role. And so, yeah, we really strongly love the things that he did right on the strong female side of things.
Absolutely. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been fun making it. We still enjoy Wheel of Time and still plan on making some more Wheel of Time content, especially hopefully as the Amazon show comes out. Hopefully it's really good and we like it, both things together. And we can discuss that some with you guys. We enjoy talking about it. Hope you enjoy it. Obviously, if you made it this far in the video, you at least sort of kind of like Wheel of Time or are interested in it. Let us know in the comments whether you've read Wheel of Time, what you like, what's your favorite female and or male characters. What are some different character things? Please, if you do put spoilers in the comments, give a tag of spoiler warning. That way, people can read the comments without concern. So yeah, we like doing this video. Thank you for watching. Ring the bell, like, comment, subscribe, all the things that we have forgotten to say. See you later.
Bye. We played video games.
Our home. About to introduce you. Next to your home.
Oh, and I'm John.
Things are gonna get easier.
Do you believe in love after love? I'll do the.
I think I adjusted the wrong one. Now I'm screaming.
Wow, you're loud.